The rain hammered against the windows as I stood in my childhood living room, still wearing my black funeral dress. My mother's urn sat on the mantel, and my Uncle Charles slammed a folder onto the coffee table so hard it made me jump. "You forged the will, didn't you?" he said, his face twisted with anger. Before I could speak, my cousin Tyler stepped forward. "We know what you did, Ava. You manipulated her when she was dying." My Aunt Sharon crossed her arms. "The house was supposed to go to Charles. The savings account too. But suddenly everything's in your name?" I shook my head, tears already forming. "Mom wanted me to have it. She told me herself. She wrote me a note." "A note nobody else saw," Tyler interrupted. "How convenient." My other cousin, Bethany, laughed bitterly. "You dropped out of college to take care of her, but really you were just securing your inheritance, weren't you?" The room spun around me. These were the people I'd grown up with. The people I'd called family my whole life. And now they surrounded me like wolves, their faces full of disgust and suspicion. My Aunt Sharon pointed toward the door. "You're no longer family, Ava. Get out." I drove through the storm with tears blurring my vision, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. My name is Ava Williams, and that night, after burying my mother, I lost everyone else too. The accusations kept replaying in my mind. Forged the will. Manipulated her. Just after money. Each word cut deeper than the last because they were all lies. I thought about the past 3 years. How I'd left college in my sophomore year when Mom got diagnosed. How I'd spent every day and night in that house, learning to cook her favorite meals, helping her to the bathroom, holding her hand through the pain. My uncle and cousins had visited maybe twice in those 3 years. They'd sent flowers once and called on her birthday. But I was the bad guy. I was the manipulator. I was the thief. I pulled into a gas station parking lot and just sat there, watching the rain stream down my windshield. My phone buzzed with a text from Tyler, "Don't bother coming back. We changed the locks." My stomach dropped. That house was all I had left. Every memory of my mother lived in those walls. The garden she'd loved. The kitchen where she taught me to bake. The porch where we'd watch sunsets together. Gone. All of it, gone. 6 months earlier, everything had been different. I was sitting at the kitchen table with Mom, helping her work on a crossword puzzle. Her hand shook as she held the pencil, but she was smiling. "You should go back to school, sweetheart," she said softly. "You've given up too much for me." I squeezed her hand. "I'm exactly where I want to be, Mom." That's when Uncle Charles and Aunt Sharon came for one of their rare visits. They walked in with bags of expensive takeout, the kind they never offered to share. Tyler and Bethany followed behind them, already on their phones. "Still playing nurse?" Bethany had asked, not even looking up from her screen. "Someone has to," I'd replied quietly. Uncle Charles patted my shoulder in that condescending way he always did. "You're wasting your youth, Ava. Your mother wouldn't want that." But Mom squeezed my hand tighter under the table. Later, after they left, she whispered, "Don't let them make you doubt yourself. You have a beautiful heart." I wished I could hear her voice again. I wished I could tell her what they'd done to me. But she was gone, and I was completely alone. 3 weeks before Mom passed, she'd been having a good day. She asked me to help her into the garden, her favorite place in the world. We sat on the bench surrounded by roses and lavender, and she pulled out a folded piece of paper from her pocket. "I wrote this for you," she said, pressing it into my hands. "Whatever happens, Ava, this garden and this house are yours. You earned them with your love." The note was in her handwriting, shaky but clear. "I leave everything to my daughter Ava Williams. She is my heart." "Why are you telling me this?" I'd asked, confused. Mom's expression turned sad. "Because I know my brother. I know how families can be when money's involved. Keep this note safe." I tucked it into my jewelry box, never imagining I'd actually need it. But after the funeral, when I went to show it to Uncle Charles, I found my room ransacked. Drawers pulled open. My jewelry box smashed on the floor. The note was gone. Looking for something? Tyler had appeared in my doorway with a smirk. Aunt Sharon wanted some of Grandma's jewelry. We took what was ours. They'd taken the only proof I had. The only thing that could have saved me. 2 days after the funeral, I returned to the house to find all my belongings thrown onto the front porch. Boxes and trash bags sat in the rain, my clothes getting soaked. My laptop bag hung from the mailbox, swinging in the wind. Bethany stood in the doorway with her arms crossed. Uncle Charles talked to a lawyer. The house is his now. You've got 30 minutes to get your stuff and leave. You can't do this, I said, my voice breaking. Mom left this to me. You know she did. Got any proof? Bethany smiled coldly. No? Then it's our word against yours. And there are 4 of us and 1 of you. I grabbed what I could, clothes, my mother's photo albums, a few personal items. Everything else was ruined by the rain or already thrown away. The garden tools Mom and I had used together. The recipe cards in her handwriting. The throw blanket from her favorite chair. All abandoned on the porch like garbage. As I loaded my car, I looked up at the house one last time. The home where I'd learned to walk. Where Mom had braided my hair before my first day of school. Where we'd laughed and cried and lived our entire lives together. My family had turned it into a crime scene, and I was the accused. That night, I slept in my car at a rest stop outside the city. I'd parked under a broken streetlight where nobody could see me cry. The seats didn't recline properly, and every time a truck drove past, my car shook. I stared through the windshield at the stars. Mom used to say that stars were proof that beautiful things could exist in the darkness. I wanted to believe her, but right then, all I felt was darkness. Around midnight, someone knocked on my window. I jumped, my heart pounding, and saw a police officer shining a flashlight at me. You can't sleep here, miss, he said through the glass. I don't have anywhere else to go, I admitted. His expression softened. There's a shelter 2 miles north. You should try there. A shelter. 3 years ago, I'd been a college student with dreams and plans. Now I was homeless, accused of crimes I didn't commit, abandoned by everyone who was supposed to love me. I started the car and drove off into the night, wiping tears from my cheeks. Mom's urn sat in the passenger seat, the only family I had left. The next morning, sitting in a coffee shop parking lot, I remembered Naomi Caldwell. We'd been friends in high school but lost touch when I left college. I found her number in my old contacts and called before I could talk myself out of it. Ava? Her voice was warm and surprised. Oh my God, how are you? I heard about your mom. I'm so sorry. I broke down crying right there in my car. The whole story poured out, the funeral, the accusations, being thrown out of my own home. I expected her to make excuses, to say she couldn't help, to disappear like everyone else. Instead, she said, come stay with me. Right now. I'm texting you my address. 2 hours later, I stood in front of her apartment building with my 2 boxes of belongings. Naomi opened the door and pulled me into a hug so tight I almost started crying again. You're safe now, she whispered. I've got you. Her apartment was small, just 1 bedroom, but it felt warmer than any mansion my family had ever owned. That night, she made up her couch with clean sheets and gave me her spare key. Stay as long as you need, she said. And Ava? Real family doesn't abandon you. I spent the next 2 weeks applying for jobs, but without my degree, options were limited. Naomi worked as a marketing coordinator and left early each morning, always checking to make sure I had enough to eat. One afternoon, her neighbor knocked on the door. You're Ava, right? Naomi mentioned you do interior design? I used to study it, I said hesitantly. Before I dropped out. Would you look at my apartment? I hate how it's decorated, but I don't know what to do with it. I can pay you $100. $100 for a few hours of work. It wasn't much, but it was something. I grabbed my old sketchbook and followed her next door. Her apartment was dark and cluttered. But as I looked around, ideas started flowing. You could move the couch to face the window. Paint this wall a light blue. Add some plants here and here. Remove these heavy curtains and let in natural light. She loved every suggestion. Within a week, her apartment looked completely different, and she'd told 3 of her friends about me. Suddenly, I had more work than I could handle. Naomi watched me sketch one night and said, "You should start your own business." Me? I laughed bitterly. The family failure? But the seed was planted. My 5th client was an older woman named Mrs. Patterson who wanted to turn her backyard into a garden retreat. As I walked through her space, memories of Mom's garden flooded back. The roses she'd planted. The small fountain she'd found at a garage sale. The way she'd designed everything to flow naturally. What if we made it eco-friendly? I suggested. Recycled materials, native plants, a small rain collection system? Mrs. Patterson's eyes lit up. That's beautiful. Can you design the whole thing? I stayed up for 3 nights straight, sketching plans. But this time, I didn't just design a garden. I designed a small structure too, a garden room made from reclaimed wood and recycled glass. Affordable, sustainable, beautiful. When I showed Naomi the drawings, she gasped. "Ava, this is incredible. You could build these for people. Actual structures, not just gardens." "Who would want that?" I asked doubtfully. "Everyone," she said. "You've created affordable eco-housing. This could change everything." I looked at my sketches again. Maybe she was right. Maybe I could build something new from the ruins of my old life. Maybe this was what Mom meant when she said I had a beautiful heart. I could create beauty even after losing everything. A month later, I ran into Bethany at the grocery store. She was loading expensive wine into her cart, wearing designer clothes I could never afford. When she saw me, her expression turned mocking. "Still broke," she said loudly enough for other shoppers to hear. Guess Mom was right about some people being born to serve. I felt my face flush, but I kept my voice steady. At least I serve a purpose. Purpose? She laughed. You're a college dropout living on someone's couch. Tyler told me you're doing odd jobs now. How the mighty have fallen. Other shoppers were staring. I wanted to scream at her, to tell her about the designs in my portfolio, about the business ideas forming in my mind. But I didn't. I just smiled faintly and walked away. That night, I pulled out my sketchbook and worked until dawn. Every cruel word Bethany said became fuel. Every laugh, every insult, every moment they'd made me feel small, I channeled it all into my designs. I would show them what purpose looked like. I would build something they could never destroy. And I would do it without their name, their money, or their approval. The best revenge wouldn't be anger. It would be success. Naomi believed in me so completely that she quit her marketing job to help me full-time. We registered the business as Eden Built Designs, named after my mother's garden and the life I was building from nothing. You're crazy, I told her as we filed the paperwork. You had a stable job. And you had a family who threw you away, she replied. Sometimes crazy is the only way forward. We started pitching to small investors, showing them my designs for modular eco-homes. Beautiful structures that could be built affordably using sustainable materials. Homes for people who couldn't afford traditional houses but deserved better than they had. The first 10 investors rejected us. Too idealistic. And proven concept. Come back when you have experience. After the 15th rejection, I wanted to quit. But Naomi kept a journal where she wrote down every rejection. Someday we'll look back at this and laugh, she said. Every no is just practice for the right yes. I didn't believe her then. But I kept going anyway, because what else could I do? Go back to my family and admit they were right? Sleep in my car again? Give up on the only dream I had left? No. I would keep pushing until something broke through. Our breakthrough came from an unexpected place. An elderly architect named Mr. Howard attended one of our pitch meetings. While other investors checked their phones, he studied my drawings carefully. Afterward, he approached me. "How old are you?" 23, I said nervously. "And you designed all of this yourself?" "Yes, sir." He smiled. "You've got vision, kid. Raw talent. These people don't see it because they're looking at balance sheets. They don't understand what you're trying to build." He offered to mentor me, no strings attached. Over the next 6 months, Mr. Howard taught me everything he knew about construction, permits, codes, and the business side of architecture. He never asked for equity or control. He just believed in me. "Why are you helping me?" I asked one day. "Because 50 years ago, someone helped me when everyone else said I was too young and too broke to succeed," he replied. "That's what real mentors do. We lift up the next generation." With his guidance, Naomi and I built our first prototype eco-home in Mr. Howard's backyard. It was small, just 400 square feet, but it was perfect. Solar panels on the roof. Recycled materials throughout. A living wall of plants on one side. Beautiful and sustainable. Our miracle, born from scrap and hope. A blogger named Casey Martinez stumbled upon our prototype while visiting Mr. Howard's neighborhood. She knocked on the door and asked if she could film it for her sustainable living channel. "I have 50,000 subscribers," she explained. "Most of them would love to see this." We said yes, not expecting much. But within 3 days, the video had 2 million views. Then 5 million. Then 10. Comments flooded in from people all over the country asking where they could buy these homes. "Is this real?" Naomi kept refreshing the screen. "This can't be real." But it was real. Emails poured in. Phone calls. Interview requests. Suddenly, everyone wanted to know about the 2 women building the future of sustainable living. I sat on Mr. Howard's porch that night and cried. Not from sadness this time, but from overwhelming relief. For the first time since Mom died, I felt like maybe things would be okay. Maybe I could actually do this. Naomi sat beside me and held my hand. "Your mom would be so proud." "I hope so," I whispered. "I really hope so." The underdog was finally rising, and the world was starting to pay attention. 6 months later, Naomi and I sat across from a panel of investors at a major pitch event. These weren't small-time local investors anymore. These were the people who'd funded Fortune 500 companies. One of them, a man named Mr. Thompson, squinted at our paperwork. "Williams? Any relation to Charles Williams?" My heart stopped. Uncle Charles had run a real estate development company before it collapsed amid scandal last year. The news had been everywhere: fraud accusations, unpaid contractors, angry clients. "Yes," I said carefully. "He's my uncle. But we don't speak." The room went quiet. I could feel them making assumptions, connecting my last name to his failures. This was it. Another rejection. Another door closing. But then Naomi spoke up. "Charles Williams built things that fell apart. We build things that last. That's the difference." I added softly, "I learned what not to do by watching him. Every mistake he made taught me how to do it right." Mr. Thompson studied me for a long moment. Then he smiled. "That's the kind of self-awareness I like to see. Let's talk numbers." 2 weeks later, we had funding. Real funding. Enough to scale production and hire a team. Enough to turn Edenbuilt from a dream into a real company. The day our company was featured in a major business magazine, my phone buzzed with a text from Aunt Sharon. The first message I'd received from her in over 2 years. "Saw you on TV. So proud of you, dear. Always knew you'd do great things. Red heart." I stared at the message for a long time. Always knew? She'd thrown me out of my own home. She'd called me a forger and a liar. She'd watched her children mock me and said nothing. And now she was proud? Naomi watched me from across the room. Are you going to respond? I set my phone down without replying. No. Silent victories hit hardest. 2 days later, Uncle Charles sent an email. The subject line read, Family Matters. I deleted it without opening it. Tyler tried calling. Bethany sent a Facebook friend request. Even distant relatives I barely remembered started reaching out, acting like we'd always been close. But I remembered who held my hand when Mom was dying. I remembered who gave me a couch when I had nowhere to sleep. I remembered who believed in me when everyone else called me worthless. And it wasn't them. It would never be them again. 3 years after that horrible funeral, Uncle Charles's company officially filed for bankruptcy. The news broke on the same day Edenbilt announced our partnership with a national housing program. The headlines were almost poetic. William's real estate empire crumbles as niece's eco-housing company soars. Local reporters ate it up. The family that had thrown away their only genuine builder was now watching her build an empire they could never match. I didn't gloat. I didn't call them. I didn't send any of the petty messages I'd drafted in my head over the years. I just kept working, kept building, kept proving that success didn't require their approval or their name. Naomi joked one afternoon, you should send them a thank you card. They motivated you by being awful. I shook my head. I'll let success speak for itself. That restraint felt better than any angry phone call could have. My revenge wasn't loud or mean or desperate. It was patient, earned, and undeniable. Every article about Edenbilt, every award we won, every home we built, each one was proof that they'd thrown away something valuable. And they were the ones who had to live with that. The following year, Uncle Charles, Aunt Sharon, Tyler, and Bethany showed up at a public ribbon-cutting ceremony for our 100th eco-home. They stood in the crowd wearing fake smiles, pretending to be supportive family members. When I stepped up to the microphone for my speech, I saw them clearly. Tyler waved like we were old friends. Aunt Sharon blew me a kiss. Uncle Charles nodded approvingly, as if he'd had anything to do with my success. Cameras flashed. Reporters scribbled notes. And in that moment, I had a choice. I could play along, let them pretend, maintain the peaceful facade. Or I could speak the truth. I took a breath and said, thank you all for being here. This company wouldn't exist without the people who believed in me when I had nothing. I gestured to Naomi, Mr. Howard, and our small team. These people are my real family. The ones who showed up when it mattered. Uncle Charles's smile faltered. Aunt Sharon's expression tightened. A few reporters glanced their way, sensing a story. Sometimes, I continued, the family you choose means more than the family you're born into. And I'm grateful every day that I learned that lesson. The crowd applauded, but my relatives slipped away before the ceremony ended. 2 weeks later, Uncle Charles showed up at Edenbilt's office without an appointment. My assistant buzzed me nervously. Your uncle is here. He says it's urgent family business. I almost laughed. Family business. Now it was family business. Not when I was sleeping in my car. Not when I was crying on Naomi's couch. Not when I needed them most. Only now, when I had something they wanted. Send him in, I said calmly. He walked into my office looking older than I remembered. His suit was rumpled. His confident swagger was gone. He sat down heavily and said, I need your help, Ava. With what? Getting back on my feet. The bankruptcy destroyed me. I'm losing everything. I know we had our differences, but family has to stick together, right? I studied him quietly. This was the man who'd accused me of forgery at my mother's funeral. Who'd taken my home. Who'd let his children mock me while I struggled to survive. You taught me what family means, I said softly. You taught me that it isn't blood or obligation. It's showing up. It's believing in people. It's sacrifice. And you showed me that you're not capable of any of those things. He started to protest, but I stood up. I hope you find your way, Uncle Charles. But I can't help you. Not because I'm cruel, but because you never helped me when I truly needed it. I walked out of my own office and left him sitting there alone. That evening, I hosted a dinner at my apartment for everyone who'd supported me. Naomi, Mr. Howard, our team of builders, even Casey Martinez who'd made that first viral video. We crowded around my dining table with homemade food and cheap wine, laughing until our sides hurt. Naomi raised her glass. To the family we built ourselves. To chosen family, Mr. Howard added. I looked around the table at these beautiful people who'd shown me what love actually meant. None of them had my blood. None of them were obligated to care about me. But they did anyway, purely because they wanted to. My eyes filled with tears, but for once they were happy tears. Thank you, I said, my voice catching. All of you. You saved my life. You saved your own life, Naomi replied. We just held the flashlight while you found your way. Later that night, after everyone left, I sat on my balcony and thought about Mom. About how she'd always said that family meant showing up, not sharing DNA. She'd known what was coming. She'd tried to prepare me. And somehow, through all the pain and loss, I'd found exactly what she meant. 5 years after that funeral, Edenbilt was valued at over $1 billion. We'd built homes in 40 states. We'd won awards for sustainability and innovation. Major corporations wanted to partner with us. My face appeared in business magazines next to articles about female entrepreneurs changing the world. The call came on a Tuesday afternoon. My assistant said, your aunt, uncle, and cousins are here. All of them. They're asking to meet with you. I'd known this moment would come eventually. After years of silence, after watching my success from a distance, they finally wanted to try again. Not because they loved me. Not because they'd realized their mistake. But because I had something they wanted, money, connections, legitimacy. Send them to conference room B, I said. I'll be there in 10 minutes. Naomi found me in my office. Are you sure about this? I need to do this, I replied. Not for them. For me. To prove I can face them without falling apart. She squeezed my shoulder. I'll be right outside if you need me. I walked to the conference room with my head high, wearing the confidence I'd earned through years of hard work and survival. This time, I wasn't the scared girl in the funeral dress. I was the CEO of my own empire. They sat around the conference table looking uncomfortable in their expensive clothes. Uncle Charles's hair had gone completely gray. Aunt Sharon kept fidgeting with her jewelry. Tyler wouldn't meet my eyes. Bethany's confident smirk was nowhere to be seen. I sat at the head of the table and waited. Let them speak first. Let them explain themselves. Uncle Charles cleared his throat. Ava, we owe you an apology. I didn't respond. We were wrong, Aunt Sharon added quickly. We acted terribly after your mother's funeral. We were grieving and not thinking clearly. We said things we didn't mean, Tyler mumbled. Bethany finally spoke. We're family, Ava. We made mistakes, but can't we move past them? The word mistakes almost made me laugh. Throwing me out wasn't a mistake. Stealing my mother's note wasn't a mistake. Mocking me at the grocery store wasn't a mistake. Those were choices. Deliberate, cruel choices. You didn't make a mistake, I said quietly. You made a choice. You chose cruelty over compassion. You chose money over love. You chose to destroy me when I was at my weakest. Uncle Charles leaned forward. We want to make it right. We want to be family again. Now? I raised my eyebrows. Now that I'm successful? Where were you when I needed family? Where were you when I was sleeping in my car? Silence swallowed the room. I'll tell you where you were, I continued. You were in my mother's house, the house you stole from me, celebrating your victory. You were spending the inheritance you claimed I'd forged. You were telling people I was a manipulator and a liar. Aunt Sharon's eyes filled with tears, but they looked fake. Practiced. The kind of tears that came when someone wanted sympathy, not because they felt genuine remorse. We were wrong, she said again. But holding grudges doesn't help anyone. Your mother wouldn't want this. The mention of Mom made anger flash through me. Don't you dare tell me what my mother would want. You barely visited her. You didn't hold her hand through chemo. You didn't clean up when she was too sick to make it to the bathroom. You didn't stay up all night making sure she was still breathing. My voice cracked, and I paused to compose myself. I did all of that. Alone. While you sent flowers once and called on holidays. So don't tell me what she would want. Tyler spoke up. We know you're angry, but we're still family. Blood is blood. You're right, I said. Blood is blood. But that doesn't mean anything without love. And you never loved me. You tolerated me when it was convenient and destroyed me when it wasn't. Uncle Charles tried a different approach. If you won't forgive us for family's sake, at least consider business. We could help you. We have connections, experience. The connections that led to your bankruptcy? I interrupted. The experience that got you sued by dozens of clients? That experience? His face reddened. That wasn't, the market changed. No, I cut him off. You failed because you cut corners. You lied to clients. You cared more about profit than people. That's why your company collapsed. And that's why I'll never work with you. I stood up, signaling the meeting was over. I wish you peace. I really do. But I don't need your apologies or your help. I already have everything I need. Bethany's voice turned sharp. So you're just going to throw us away like we don't matter? The irony was almost funny. Yes, I said simply. Exactly like you did to me. Now you know how it feels. I walked to the door and paused, looking back at them one last time. Edenbuilt was built by people who believed in me. People who showed up when it mattered. You're not those people, and you never will be. Ava, please, Aunt Sharon started. But I was already walking out, letting the door close softly behind me. I found Naomi waiting in the hallway, exactly where she said she'd be. She searched my face. How do you feel? Free, I said honestly. For the first time in 5 years, I feel completely free. We walked to my office together, and through the window, I watched my former family leave the building. They walked slowly, hunched over, defeated. Part of me felt sad for them. But a bigger part felt relief. I'd faced them. I'd spoken my truth. I'd set boundaries. And I'd walked away with my dignity intact. That night, I drove to the cemetery where Mom was buried. I hadn't been there in months. Work had kept me too busy. But suddenly I needed to see her, to tell her everything. I knelt by her headstone and traced her name with my fingers. You were right, Mom. About everything. Family isn't who shares your blood. It's who shares your heart. The sunset painted the sky in shades of pink and gold. Mom had always loved sunsets. She said they proved that endings could be beautiful too. I built something good, I whispered. Something that helps people. Something that would make you proud. And I did it with real family. The kind you taught me to recognize. A year later, Edenbuilt opened our 1,000th eco-home. Naomi and I stood in front of the crowd, neither of us quite believing we'd made it this far. From a couch and a dream to a billion-dollar company. From broken and abandoned to strong and successful. The family who'd thrown me away had become irrelevant. I never heard from them again after that conference room meeting. Sometimes I wondered if they thought about me, if they regretted their choices. But mostly, I didn't think about them at all. My real family surrounded me now. Naomi, who'd given me hope when I had none. Mr. Howard, who'd taught me to build with integrity. Casey, who'd shared my story with the world. My team of builders and designers who poured their hearts into every home we created. After the ceremony, we gathered for dinner at my favorite restaurant. Someone proposed a toast to Ava, but I shook my head. No, I said. To chosen family. To the people who show up. To second chances and new beginnings. As glasses clinked around the table, I caught my reflection in the window. I looked different than that scared girl at the funeral 5 years ago. Stronger. Happier. Free. My blood relatives had disowned me, but my chosen family had made me a billionaire in the ways that truly mattered, rich in love, purpose, and belonging. And that was worth more than anything they could have given me.